Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Esports Masters League, round number 2 here in the second division, League 1. And the action tonight is coming from the fantastic Circuit de Catalunya for the Spanish Grand Prix. My name is Luke Etheridge, and we've got a slight change of a commentary box from last time. Graham Chabelle has swapped with this person coming up his way from League 2. It is Aidan Carter. Aidan, how are you doing?
I'm doing really well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me back in League 1. Obviously, commentated last season, so it's really great to be back in League 1 once again. And yeah, it's going to be such a great evening of racing this evening. The first round was really close between all of the teams, so I'm expecting more of the same here at the circuit of Barcelona Catalunya.
Yeah, it should be. Hopefully, we will get a really close round. Last time around, it has been about 5 weeks ago now, so I'm just going to jog your memories of what happened last time around. It was actually a victory for QVR. Verstappen ended up taking the victory there. His teammate got pole position and got the fastest lap, and you get bonus points for that. So you might imagine QVR are top of the standings for team who won it last season. But it is actually Relentless who finished 3rd and 4th with Justas and Nathan, and they're actually the only team to have continued with their lineup tonight. They are top of the standings, as you can see. QVR and XL Racing just at 1 and 2 points behind the leaders respectively. LATAM Formula Racing in 4th. LRTV Esports are in 5th. VER are 6th. Leonis, who are shown to have 7th, have since folded. They've been replaced in League 1 by the old leaders of League 2, CPI, so there'll be a new team tonight. So TTG bump up a slot. You've got Elite Racing Team and CPI on 0 points now. And IFR Academy, it says -5 on there. They were late submitting their driver lineup, so they are already on -10 points. Looking at the top of the standings though, Aidan, it is going to be an extremely close season, this one.
Yeah, it looks really close, doesn't it? Obviously, last season's champions, Clean Vigor Racing, getting off to a good start once again. Verstappen I don't know what it is about Verstappen in League 1 in Esports Masters League, but he always seems to be right at the front of the field. Excel as well, good at the gates. Relentless, of course, their first time racing in EML, top of the standings, but by only 1 point, so nothing in it at all. And then, of course, behind that, there's plenty of other teams that are just as close. to TAM had a really good first round as well. IRT were really strong, so you can't really count anybody out at this point in the championship. There's still so many teams and so many drivers that could come in and spice it up. So that's the beauty of this championship. Having a different lineup each time means that the order could change each week.
Yeah, that is obviously the case. We will just quickly take you through who the lineup is for this for the races tonight. So for QVR, it is going to be Verstappen, Carrying On, and Campbell. For the XL, it's going to be a whole new lineup of Killer Blue and Larkin. TTG have gone with, I believe it's actually Philip MD and Machiro. He is now reserving for them. It's an old Dutch lineup in the for the IRT of Bumshe and Seeb. VER, who I don't believe either of their drivers have actually joined yet. It is Kelvin and Missel. IFR Academy have Lewis and Pease. For LATAM, it is Juan Rojo and Cyclonado. For CPI, it is Brazabak and CPI Schnell. ERT have gone for Hans and Khalifa tonight. And for the bottom team, Relentless, as we've said, they have stayed the same, Justas and Nathan. We'll have to wait and see whether that consistency helps them. Bahrain, obviously a very different track to Spain, and it was 5 weeks ago we were at the Bahrain International Circuit, so the game's been out for quite a bit longer since then. We'll see if we get a slight changing of the order tonight.
Yeah, could be a completely different order, like you say, a completely different circuit in nature. And of course, beyond that as well, there's so many things to think of about this track. Obviously, there could be weather that could play a part in this race as well. We've got strategy beyond that as well. So many different things about the circuit compared to Bahrain. So seeing the difference in lineups just proves that each track is suited differently to different people within each team. So going to be an interesting one to see tonight who comes out on top. And just jumping into qualifying now, when it does look a little bit overcast.
Yeah, as we just head then into the qualifying session, you can see it looking very dull at this moment in time. Hopefully we don't get ourselves any rain. No one rushing out there on this occasion. Unfortunately, it looks like VAR, neither of their drivers have actually made it to the session, so they'll be getting themselves a not so lovely 10-place deduction for that, unfortunately, and they're not really going to be able to do anything about it. But drivers leaving it quite late in this session to head out to the circuit. A few of them maybe looking to go onto a set of the medium tyres. Spain, it's always been a bit of a tyre killer. It's been known as in previous games. You can make the one-stop work, but you are going to have to be light on your tyres to do so.
Yeah, you really are going to have to be light on your tyres. Like you say, it's so easy around this track to overheat that front left tyre. Of course, so many long right-handed corners on this track. You've got turn 1, beyond that turn 3, turn 4, turn 9, turn 12, just to name a few of the corners that will be killer for those front compound tyres. So being on the softs at the start of the race, obviously you'll get the advantage in qualifying and you'll get track position, which is also very crucial here. But beyond that, the tyre temperatures are just going to skyrocket in that case. So going to be really difficult for those that are starting on the soft compound tyres to manage their front tyre temperatures.
Yeah, we have got a few drivers heading out onto circuit then, and it's sort of the kings of qualifying here at League One in EML. We saw them last season do a very good job, of course. The reigning champions are heading out, and it's Verstappen and Campbell tonight. And you were saying just before the stream started, Verstappen, he always seems to be there or thereabouts. He's like he's a different beast once you put him in a team event.
Yeah, he really is. I don't know what it is about Verstappen and EML, but it always seems to go his way, doesn't it? He's maybe not the strongest qualifier. Of course, his teammate got pole position last time out in Bahrain, but he has been really strong in races. He's incredibly consistent, such a reliable driver, which is why we see him racing in EML so often now. I think he's raced at least over 10 times now in EML. He's just such a reliable driver for QVR. So always there or thereabouts. Maybe not in qualifying, but in the race you can rely on him to at least get some really decent points.
Yeah, and let's see what he can do in this qualifying session and around the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalonia. Let's go on board with QVR Verstappen for this first hot lap around the 4.655 kilometre track, heading across the start-finish line. DRS wide open, then this long straight, one of the longest ones in Formula 1, to the first corner. Can provide plenty of action on the first lap, braking hard there on the curb, down to 4th gear for the chicane at turns 1 and 2. And then one of the features of this track are the long right-handers that really start to put pressure on that left-hand side tyre on the front of the car. Coming through turn 3 now, through the first sector, 21.6. Then again, another medium-speed right-hander as you come through turn 4. CPI Schnell getting well out of the way there. Turn 5 can provide an overtaking opportunity if there's a bit of a difference on the tyres or a bit of a mistake from the car in front, but not too often. Nice and easy through 6. Then for turn 7, 8 chicane. The curbs here can catch the drivers out. This long flat right-hander at turn 9. It might be flat once they've got a bit more confidence. Just a bit of a lift now there from Verstappen, and it is still the 2020 layout, so turn 10 does provide a bit of a better overtaking opportunity than it does on the updated layout. This fiddly little 11 and 12, I think the drivers will be glad to see the back of that one on F1 2022. Now into the final sector, really twisty through this part, pretty much single file through 13, 14 and 15. It's all about getting on the power as early as possible through there, flat out through turn 16. Used to be a tricky corner before that chicane was added, and it's now a 1:15.827 for QBR Verstappen. His teammate comes in behind, just 0.2 of a second slower.
Yeah, not a bad that time for Verstappen, and at least to get something on the board as well. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see drivers a little bit faster than that, down to the low 15s, possibly into the 14s as well. Both the XL drivers cross the line, and they go in right behind the QVR men. So Verstappen and Campbell 1-2 at the moment. Larkin and Killer Blue for XL tonight, 3rd and 4th after the first ones in qualifying. I think a couple of people, Mashiro, tried a lap on the medium compound tyres, but has unfortunately invalidated that lap. So he's not going to be improving on where he is at the moment. More drivers coming in. Philip coming in into 4th place, Juan Rojo there as well. And we've got Lewis for IFR just jumping into P5. So early phases of the qualifying, QVR seem to have the way of the timesheets at the top of the table at the moment.
Yeah, they are looking pretty good. Just as heading towards the line for the championship leaders, of course, Relentless. 3rd place, last time out in the race. He comes across the line and goes fastest of everyone by exactly 0.3 of a second from him, a 1:15.527. His teammate slots into 2nd place, almost exactly splitting by 1.5 temps, just as Verstappen. So Relentless 1-2, QVR 3-4, sort of matching the top of the championship at this moment. You've got XL Larkin in 5th, his teammate Killer Blue the slowest one. Mashiro has lost it coming out of turn number 9. I don't think he'll be the first person to do that. And that is the TTG Academy driver out of the session.
Yeah, that is such a shame for Mashiro. We know how fast Mashiro is. He's really strong. As I just catch Khalifa there, having a big moment through turn 7 and turn 8, just about getting away with it, but running into the gravel trap in that case. And like you say, yeah, so easy to lose the car coming out of turn 9. You're even slightly off the line. You touch that red curb on the outside of the corner, and it spits you out the other side, which I imagine is what's happened to Mashiro there. Beyond that as well, being on the medium compound tyres, you have less grip in qualifying as well. So not surprised that we've seen it, and like you say, I fully agree. I think we might see it again at some point in this session, and possibly in the race as well.
Yeah, Boompier for IRT here. He's in 11th place at this moment in time, yet to set a lap time. Still 12 minutes to go. They do get a bonus point. Let's not forget for qualifying. We will Might actually quickly get the points tally up once it gets a bit quiet. Show you what the points system is, because it is slightly different to real Formula 1 and it is slightly different to what you see in TTML as well, as Boom Gear heads towards the line, slows down there. Wonder if that was a bit of a deliberate tactic to maybe start on the alternate strategy. Could be very powerful around here.
Yeah, it definitely could. Like we mentioned earlier on, the soft compound tyres, they're not a bad tyre, but it doesn't take them long to overheat in these conditions. So starting on the medium tyre, or even the hard tyre, if you've got the confidence at the start of the race, could be a massive benefit a little bit later on as well, especially when those that have started on the soft compound tyres are struggling towards the end of each of their stints. So being on that alternate strategy could definitely work, absolutely. So I'm not surprised that we have seen already at least one driver back off the line, and I wouldn't be surprised if some other drivers have also done the same.
Yeah, certainly. You can see the point system up on screen at the moment. 25 for a win, 22 for second, and 20 for third. And then 18, 16 down to 1, as we just caught the tail end of that there. Hands going for a spin. ERT did a very good job, as he's got a very jazzy gloves and very jazzy outfit that we just saw there as he went ghosted underneath the slightly Ligier-like ERT livery. But they're a team that I think people will be expecting them to. Might take them a bit of time to get used to things. Still a fairly new team, still fairly new to team events, but I think they'll be hoping, obviously, for a much better result than last time out, and maybe as the season comes on, be a bit of a dark horse to get a few podiums, possibly even victories.
Yeah, it is definitely possible for ERT. I think we've mentioned it a couple of times already across many seasons as well, that to be competitive in EML, the first thing you have to do is make sure you have to finish races. Of course, they didn't have that in Bahrain, which is why they're currently sat on no points at the bottom of the standings. But we know from the qualifying event, they qualified nearly joint top, I believe, with IFRA to get into League One. So they've got the speed in there. They just need to master it in race conditions. And we're only one round in. It's not over for ERT. There's plenty more rounds to come and plenty different tracks that may suit them a bit better. So while it's not got off to a great start, there is definitely a lot of potential within the team.
Yeah, there's always that opportunity. We've got the two IFR Academy drivers here, in very different liveries, but also Total P's just sitting behind Lewis at this moment in time, fairly close to the back of him. I wonder if they're considering using a slipstream. It is an incredibly long run down towards the first corner, of course. In fact, it looks like P's might just be both of the drivers backing off ever so slightly. So slipstreaming is allowed here, of course. Always good to try and work together and communicate with your teammates. I'll be shocked if there is any team that isn't. In the end, though, P's just backing off, and it's something we haven't actually mentioned about working with your teammates. Just because you're in the same team with someone for this event does not mean they're going to be your in-game teammate for this qualifying session and for the race. So that could always cause some problems, especially if we get a safety car. Seeing as we've already seen one accident, would it be a big shock to get a VSC or a full safety car in the race?
Yeah, definitely wouldn't be a shock here, of course, with the barriers as well, so close to the track in many places that if you are going to see a crash here, you are likely going to see a safety car as a result. And like you mentioned, not knowing who your teammate is can really catch you out in the session. So you've got to be aware of what's going on around you. By the way, Killer Blue currently coming around on his second lap for the XL team. Currently 10th at the moment on a 16.5. He's going to cross the line and go just behind his teammate on a 16.1. So it's relentless, QVR, XL in the top 6 places at the moment. And they're the top 3 teams in the championship in that order as well. So a good start to qualifying for them. And one thing I've just noticed is, interestingly, our current pole sitter, Justas, has gone out onto the track on a set of medium compound tyres. Does he think he can qualify faster on the mediums than on the softs?
Oh, I wonder if he's just trying to get a bit of a run on these medium tyres, to get a bit of a feel for them. Maybe not had a chance to do as much practice as he'd like, because surely you wouldn't. 1:15.5 is a very respectable lap time. There is very little chance, given a bit of a delta between the tyres here, of course, being the hardest ones that they use, being that the tyres play such a part around the circuit, as we're going to see in the race. I would be very surprised if he's actually going to try and set a faster lap here. He's going to head out on a lap, so we might catch up with him a bit later on, see what sort of time he is doing. Stell's just coming towards the finish line here for CPI. We're leading in League 2, of course, and it looks like they've transitioned well to League 1 at the moment. 8th and 9th place, looking pretty handy indeed. IFR Lewis has got himself up into 5th position. We go on board then with Philip MD. For the TTG Academy team, only got one driver scoring points last time around, and that was Perpetuum, who did get 12th place after a 5-second penalty for resetting to track. That knocked him down from 11th. Another driver to get a penalty was Jean for the Latam Formula Racing team. He finished in 5th and then got a 10-second time penalty for erratic braking under the VSC. And of course, we've already talked about IFR's penalties for various rule infringements. As Philip comes across the line, he gets himself up then into 6th place, just as He's only a 10th down through the first sector, which isn't bad whatsoever. I imagine it's going to be the final one. He has actually invalidated this lap. He's now a 2nd down through sector 2. I imagine on a normal run, the final sector with all them slow corners is where you'd really start to feel the effect of those harder tyres.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be the place, isn't it? It's like Leonardo now goes to the top of the timesheets. That's on his 2nd lap on that set of tyres. That's a very strong lap from the TAM driver to go to the top of the timesheets by just over 200ths of a second. Really close in the front 2 rows. But yeah, on his 2nd lap on a set of soft compound tyres, that is a really, really strong time from him. And that breaks Relentless's stranglehold on the front row as it stands. Can they respond to that? I was just watching as well some other laps as well. Nathan did make a mistake in the final sector. Campbell also made a mistake in that final sector, and so did Larkin. So a lot of drivers really struggling at the moment in this mid-part qualifying to get another run in. And like you mentioned, yeah, that last sector would be where the medium tyres do start to suffer in pace because of all of those traction zones.
Yeah, Total P seems like he's struggling to get a lap in as well. He's down in 15 for the moment, yet to set a valid lap time. The other drivers yet to set a valid lap time. Mashiro obviously out of the session, and the 2 ERT drivers, both of them going for a set of the mediums. If you can get into the top 10 on the mediums, and looking how close things are at the moment, I'd be extremely surprised if any driver can manage to get into the top 10 on a set of the medium tyres. But if you could, it would put you in good stead for the race. I'm not sure starting on 2-lap old softs is going to put you in good stead for the race. So Cyclonado may be hoping that he can improve on his next run as he takes a bit of a shorter line to the pit lane. Doesn't want to put any more wear on those tyres than he absolutely has to. This is something I've seen in quite a few other leagues though. It's almost like the tyres on this game, the softs, no matter what the circuit, seem to take a second run to really get into their optimal zone.
Yeah, it does seem like that, doesn't it? That in qualifying, at least, you don't really see that drop in performance between the soft, between the first and the second lap on the soft compound tyres. But in the race, it is such a massive difference that just one lap on the soft compound tyres can make. I was just riding with Khalifa, by the way. He's made yet another mistake through that 7 and 8 chicane, and he's backed off of his lap, so he's not going to be setting a time as of yet. His teammate Hans passes him on the track, and it's a 50.5 in the middle sector. That's not too bad, but like you say, it's going to be so difficult for them to get inside the top 10 on a set of the medium compound tyres. Yeah, it's just, like you say, just so difficult for some of these drivers on the soft compound tyres in race conditions to keep them within range. And more often than not now, you have to rely on your setup to make sure that the soft compound tyres are strong in the race. So it's like Leonardo hoping that that's going to definitely be the case for him.
Yeah, Hans goes into 15th place and slowest of everyone that has set a time. 1.2 seconds off of pole position though. Suggests if he did go for a set of soft tyres, he'd definitely be able to get himself right up there at this moment in time. Khalifa does a 1:25.1, guaranteeing that he'll beat Mashiro at least, but you would be expecting him to go for another flat out run. So let's see what the Bahraini driver can do on these mediums. A bit of understeer there coming through turn 3, as you would expect. With 4 minutes remaining, Cyclonado fastest, just as Nathan Verstappen Campbell round out your top 5. None of those 4 drivers for Relentless or QBR really improving on their run. All of them making mistakes. IFRA Lewis gets himself up into 6th. They're looking for their first points. Philip is 7th. The 2 Excel drivers are 8th and 9th, and then Boupierre for the IRT team. They are in 10th position at this moment in time. Both CPI drivers 11 and 12. Juan Rojo is 13th. Then it's Steve, Hans, Khalifa, who are on board with now Pease and Mashiro. As Khalifa gets it right through that part of the circuit this time, he's down a 50.5 coming through sector 2. This still getting well out of the way. We're really getting to the interesting part of the qualifying session now. Can anyone topple Cyclonado's time? He's only 24 thousandths ahead. It has stayed overcast in this session, and I wonder if that's just helping the tyres last a slightly bit longer.
Yeah, that definitely could have helped us up to the line. Hannes has improved to a 16.3 now on those medium compound tyres, and it's only a 16.8 from Khalifa. And I think that's ERT's qualifying session over. They've only got 2.75 minutes to go in this session, so they're not going to get round to the pit lane in time to do another run. As Juan Rojo crosses the line for Latam, and he goes 3rd now. So it's Latam 1st and 3rd in this session, both in the 15.5. So it's just us at the moment that splits the 2 of them down the middle. So strong qualifying from Latam here in Spain, but of course the race is another thing. Like I said, yeah, that's definitely Elite Racing Team's qualifying session over and done with. They've not got enough time left in the session to get back out again.
No, they are, and Latam though, I've got to say, fantastic performance from them. 4th in the championship at the moment for the South American-based team. 1st and 3rd in this qualifying session. They are not looking bad whatsoever. On board with Stell then, 13th at this moment in time. Not so long ago, we were talking about both CPI cars being in the top 10 of this session. Things are so close with 2 minutes remaining here. What can he do as he comes through the second sector? He's 2 tenths up. And just to see how close things are again, 2 tenths from 13th place would actually get him up into 7th at this moment in time. He's got Hans just ahead of him at this moment in time. I'm sure the ERT driver will get well out of the way if he needs to. This might not provide too much of a hold-up, but it's definitely providing a visual distraction for the CPI driver at the moment. Yellow flags as various cars are just backing off on outlaps or making mistakes. As you see there, Schnell doing what we've seen so many drivers do on this game around this circuit. Slow down at the finish line. They do not want to set a better time.
No, they're just not committed to it, are they? They don't want to start on the soft compound tyres. Some of these drivers are locked in at this point. You've got to say the top 6, probably at least in this session, are locked in with the times that they've done. But yeah, a lot of drivers not willing to start on the soft compound tyres. We've got more people coming up to their laps. Juan Rojo has retired from the session. He won't be going for another run in this one. Lewis has already invalidated his next run as well. So a lot of drivers got their bank laps in, and then since then, just haven't been able to improve.
Yeah, we are seeing that, of course. So Cyclonado, he's going for a second run on the tyres. It worked well for him last time around. Yellow flags, I think that is just drivers backing off at different points. And no, in fact, Lewis going very slowly indeed. Wonder if he's had a spin on his, well, probably on his way back to the pits here. Total Peace has kept it clean this time around. So where could the other IFR Academy driver go towards the end of this session? He's going to only get one chance at it and puts himself up into a very respectable 5th place, as there has been a spinner somewhere out on circuit, and I think that is Brazabak just getting well out of the way on that run down towards turn number 10. Nathan goes fastest on a 1:15.387. His teammate is improving as well. Could we see a relentless 1-2 here? We are nearly at the end of qualifying.
Yeah, it's very, very close for them. They're looking really strong. Killer Blue as well is currently improving. He's 0.2 of a second up, coming through the second sector split. He's coming up to the line now. Where can the XL driver go? He crosses and goes P5 now, just ahead of Piers Justas. Next to the line for Relentless, crosses the line, and he takes provisional pole away from his Relentless teammate by just under 0.03 of a second in the end. So it's Relentless 1-2 once again, and Cyclonado went for that second run on the set of softs and couldn't improve. So he's back into the pit lane. At the moment, it's LFR 3-4 because neither of them are going to improve. Verstappen's just crossed the line and gone P5 for QVR. But beyond that, there's not a lot of drivers left on runs at the moment. Philip and Larkin, I believe, are the only ones left on a run. Brazabak.
Sorry to interrupt you, Aidan. Lewis has had a massive spin there coming. That's coming through turn 13. I wonder if he's just locked the rears up. He was absolutely... He was on a hot lap on his second go on those tyres. Checkered flag is out in this qualifying session, but he's had a massive spin there. Imagine huge rear wing damage as he heads back to the pits, I imagine. Philip MD gets himself up into 8th position, and it looks like it is just Larkin out on track now on a hot lap.
Yeah, Larkin then coming through this final sector. We've just seen Philip cross the line and go P8, so that knocks Campbell down another position in this qualifying session. Where can Larkin go? He's a bit wide there of the apex of 14 and clobbers the curb on the inside of 15, and you can see there he's just given up just through that final sector. He was about 0.2 of a second up on his lap, dives into the pit lane at the end of the run. I think he knew that there wasn't going to be any improvement, so Larkin only 12th on the grid in the end. That could be a blessing in disguise with the alternate strategy, but Relentless 1-2 and their closest rivals in the championship in QVR and XL not having the best of qualifying sessions.
No, I'd arguably say the session's gone better for XL. The drivers are both behind for QVR. We've got 6th and 12th for XL versus 5th and 9th for QVR, but at least for XL, you've got Larkin on that alternate strategy, being in 9th place for QVR Verstappen. In fact, I'd argue that 4th and 5th row of the grid with Total Peace, Philip, Campbell and Boompier is not really the nicest place to be on this game, especially around this track, because you've got to start on that set of soft tyres, and you've got those on the alternate strategies that, unless they have a bit of a disastrous race, you'd expect drivers like Lewis, Larkin, maybe Sierra and Brazabak as well to definitely work their way into the top 10 at some point.
Yeah, you would definitely expect that, and like you say, yeah, starting 9th or 10th on the grid on the set of soft compound tyres, you're immediately vulnerable to those on the mediums behind, and it doesn't take long for the mediums to be just as strong as the softs in this qualifying in the races, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot of those starting on the medium tyres have a really good start and possibly get immediately ahead of some of the soft runners.
Yeah, I think we can safely say we are expecting a dry start to the race, judging by the few drivers that we saw backing off at the end of their hot laps, but it is a relentless 1-2. Justas ahead of Nathan, and then a Latam Formula Racing 3-4. Cyclonado gets 3rd place. Juan Rojo on his debut is in 4th. Verstappen, last month's winner, I should say, is 5th, and it's Killer Blue 6th. Good qualifying for IFRA, actually. Total Peas is 7th. Lewis just outside the top 10 in 11th. You've got Philip 8th, Campbell 9th, Boombier 10th. Lewis is in 11th place, and it is Larkin, Sieb, Brazabak, Snell, Hans, Khalifa, and Machero, of course, crashing out of the session, so failing to set a time. He will get the free choice of tyres, of course. The danger of making a terrible pun here. Relentless, their pace is looking pretty relentless at this moment in time. They were 1-2 for quite a bit of that session. Cyclonado, I think the only driver that really topped them at any point during the session. He gets to qualify 3rd, of course. Who knows what he could have done if he'd have had a final run. But the 2 relentless drivers kept it clean. They've got that bonus point, so they've doubled their lead in the championship from 1 to 2 points. Getting it done in the race, though, a bad start could easily send you falling back towards that midfield.
Yeah, definitely could. And Spain, despite it being a relatively difficult track to overtake on, it's actually got one of the longest runs down to turn 1 that we're going to see this season. It is a really long run into turn 1. So if you do have a poor start, you can very easily get swamped here. And it's difficult to remake those places. So it's going to be really interesting to see for them. And I was waiting for the pun about the relentless pace. But yeah, that is a really strong qualifying for them, especially in comparison to their championship rivals as it stands as well. But great for Latam that they're able to get on the 2nd row as well. Of course, 4th in the championship, just a little bit of drift of the top drivers, about 11 points off the lead, well, 12 after qualifying. But this is a great opportunity for them as a team as well to get in and amongst the top 3 in the standings.
Yeah, of course, Juan Rojo, a Spanish-speaking driver for Latam. And here we are at EML then. At an absolutely fantastic circuit, of course. We are at the Circuit de Catalunya for the Spanish Grand Prix. Hopefully, we'll get some absolutely fantastic action then around this brilliant circuit in Spain. First used way back in 1991. You might remember Nigel Mansell battling with Ayrton Senna all the way down the straights, and we've already spoken about how difficult the tyre wear is around this circuit, so no surprise to see that it is the 3 hardest types of tyres that Pirelli are bringing: the C1, the C2 and the C3 tyres. Top 10, of course, all qualifying on that soft runner. We've talked about Mansell and Senna, have myself and Aidan, other famous battles. How could we forget Hamilton Rosberg crashing into each other in 2016, ruining that fantastic start to the season Mercedes have had and given Verstappen his first F1 victory. I wonder whatever happened to him. 4.655 kilometres, 2.892 miles, 16 turns, 2 DRS straights into turn 1 and turn 10 do provide the main overtaking opportunities around a circuit that isn't exactly known for tons of overtaking. We'll have a quick look at what tyres everyone is starting on. We knew the top 10 were going on the softs. Interesting to see that mixture of hards and mediums. It shows that even on this game where tyre wear doesn't seem as bad, at Spain it's still borderline depending on what strategy you want to go for.
Yeah, that is definitely the case. I think at this point in this game, it's less about actual wear and more about the speed of the tyres. Maybe the percentage wear isn't as big, but the pace drop-off in some of these tyres is quite strong. And yeah, definitely interesting to see a completely equal split in tyres of those outside of the top 10. Lewis and Larkin obviously looking to make places early on, hopefully on the mediums. And Sieben, Brazabak will just be hoping to stay ahead of the likes of Stella and Machiro in the early phases.
Yeah, and I think Machiro will just be hoping that he can get a clean lap. He was a bit of a late call-up here as a reserve driver. Said he only had about 10 minutes notice and had that accident in qualifying. Less than ideal for him. As we've got the lights coming on here, we've got 5 lights at Spain. Quite a long hold there, and we are underway then for the Spanish Grand Prix. What are the starts like from the drivers? It seems like the 2 relentless drivers getting pretty close together on the run down towards turn 1. Nathan's going to have the advantage here over Just As. He takes the lead in this race, and Cyclonado's going to think about trying to chuck his nose up down the inside into turn 1. Not able to do so, though, thankfully for him. Avoids getting himself any damage, but it is Relentless Nathan leading, Just As in second place. Cyclonado and Juan Rojo now in 4th place. Killer Blue is 5th as XL Larkin finds himself spinning round at the back of the field, and Khalifa, major damage as well on the hard tyres. That's the last thing you've want. Philip MD's had problems as well, so it's been a messy start further down the back of the field. I think we'll be seeing, well, Khalifa's definitely going to have to come into the pits. Larkin, I believe he's got a bit of front wing damage as well, so he'll definitely be coming in. Whether Philip has got away scot-free, we'll have to wait and see. But a fantastic start for Relentless. They have retained 1-2, but it is now Nathan in the lead ahead of Justas.
Yeah, and beyond the top 5 at the start of that race, a lot of drivers in the mid-pack really got poor starts. Philip was one of those drivers that just didn't move off the line and immediately lost 3 places before he got to turn 1. And then I think we saw a lot of drivers get caught up with one another through turn 3, unfortunately. Of course, Larkin and Khalifa are the 2 that have come out the worst in that. They're going to have to pit to change their front wing. That's a disaster for XL for them. Killer Blue's had a good start and is up to 5th place, but Larkin now down to the back of the field, which means that alternate strategy hasn't worked so far for Larkin. He's going to have to hope for a safety car later on in this race. Another one that didn't have a good start was Verstappen. Campbell's made up places, but Verstappen forced off on the outside of turn 1 on the opening lap and has dropped to 7th place.
Yeah, so Campbell actually gaining 3 places there. Machero's gained 8 places on those mediums, taking advantage of bad starts from the others, and just a better start, I imagine, on that set of the medium tyres as well. Surprised DRT didn't split their strategies with both of their cars lower down the field. Both of them clearly thinking the hards were the best, but now Khalifa's had to go for the softs. He'll be pitting either back onto that set of hards or maybe even mediums at the end of this race. Nathan flying at the start of the field. It might be whoever's in charge of them over here at Relentless getting the strategy done. It might be worth them saying, whoa, just hold on a minute. Make sure you don't drop your stars out of your DRS range here, because it might cause your team a slight bit of a problem. Nathan's got so much pace, though, at the start of this race. The big question is, how much life is he taking out of those Pirellis?
Yeah, that is the real question. Is he just pushing so that he pits a little bit earlier than everybody else, or is this just genuine speed? And like you say, yeah, Justas at the moment in 2nd place, struggling just a little bit to keep up with his teammate. DRS is now enabled on this lap. The first time they'll be able to use it is down to the run towards turn 10. So not really too much of a worry so far for Justas on this lap. And interesting to see as well, Nathan's managed this pace without using really any ERS at all on that lap. Justas as well, pretty strong. Both the LFR drivers, especially Juan Rojo, at a real disadvantage of ERS already. We know how crucial ERS is on this game to help with overtakes. Killer Blue just in behind as well in 5th place. He's got a lot more than Juan Rojo in front in this early pace, but you can see Campbell qualifying didn't go his way, but already in the early phases of this race, Campbell looking much more confident on those soft tyres.
Yeah, doing a fantastic job at the moment. Was very close to the back of Killer Blue, and I feel like if he'd have had DRS last time around and Blue didn't, he'd have been able to get the move done. But obviously, DRS trains are now going to become a bit of a factor for some of these drivers further down, all the way from 2nd to 11th is going to be a bit of a train. Got Verstappen in 7th. Campbell just had a bit of a moment earlier on there, but gets away with it. Total P's in 8th position. And the good news for those on the, well, 2 drivers on the mediums, Lewis and Stell, they've been able to stay within that 1 second window when DRS has been activated. So that's just going to help drag these guys along. Watch out for them at the end. It wouldn't be beyond the realm of possibility. Maybe a victory is a bit too far out of the question, but wouldn't be beyond the realms of possibility for one of these drivers to make their way onto the podium, as Nathan continuing that pace again. Fastest lap of the race. He's now 1.2 seconds ahead of his teammate.
Yeah, absolutely flying, and we're already as well. That DRS chain that was starting to form, it is starting to split just a little bit at the front of the field. Juan Rojo is now really struggling to keep up with his teammate. He's just dropping closer within 1 second out of that range, and Killer Blue is getting ready to pounce on that one just in case he did have a think about a move into turn 1, but it just wasn't close enough and wasn't willing to waste any of his ERS to make the move. But a lot of drivers, Killer Blue, Campbell as well, and Verstappen looking very racy, stuck behind Juan Rojo, who's just struggling a bit, and the top 3 are just starting to inch away just a little bit. And yeah, really surprised by this from Nathan. Really strong pace at the front of the field, and Justas, at the moment, doesn't seem to be able to keep up.
Yeah, and I don't think I'll be too worried at this moment in time. He's got a tiny bit more ERS than Cyclonado, and it's not like the LFR driver's really hounding the back of him at this moment in time. In fact, I wonder whether he'll drop back a tiny bit just to make sure his teammate can stay within DRS range and extend that train. Otherwise, you do worry for Juan Rojo. 20% ERS at the end of lap 4 is what it's going to be. He is in a bit of trouble at the moment with that electrical energy. He's got Killer Blue all over the back of him. He has just about stayed within DRS range here, but we'll have to see whether he's going to go and run out of that electrical energy pretty early. But Killer Blue's too busy thinking about defending this time around. QVR Verstappen all over the back of the XL driver. He's going to be tempted by a dive down the inside into turn 1. Leaves it a bit late. In the end, leaves it a bit too late to seriously commit for that move. No real changes further down the back of the order as well. Cyclonado, I wonder if he made a slight mistake through that chicane, because he did drop a second back from Justas, and that could be crucial for the 2 Relentless drivers to try and set their way off into the sunset. At this moment in time, you've got to say controlling the race, but safety cars, penalties could all still play a part. Early days here lap 5 out of 33, and it is Nathan, followed by Justas.
Yes, a commanding start for them, and yes, Cyclonator did lose DRS down the pit straight on that attempt and used a lot of his DRS to try and close back in again, but it just looked like at this point in the race, both of the Relentless drivers have a bit more of an advantage in speed over the rest of the field at the moment. I wonder now that Justas has dropped Cyclonator, whether we'll see Nathan just drop back a bit and give his teammate DRS to help him a bit further along and pull away from the rest of the pack just that little bit more. And yeah, people are now starting to get held up just a little bit behind Juan Rojo, who was derating down the pit straight on the previous lap, on lap 5 of the race. So he's used up a lot of ERS very early on to try and keep up with his teammate. And it is really spreading out now, isn't it? The top 4 are all about 1 second apart from one another. And again, Cyclonator with no DRS down the pit straight. His teammate does have it, so that saves him for another lap. Campbell again thinking about a move on Killer Blue down the inside of turn 1 this time around, but the braking zone's just not deep enough to try a late dive bomb move down the inside, and once again, Campbell not close enough to make the move stick.
And I know it's happening on the game, but this is sort of the problem I think with modern Formula 1, is that they're so good on the brakes. Outbraking someone has become almost an impossibility. You've got to sort of rely on the other car ahead being offline or making a slight mistake. But you saw there Campbell, he had a tremendous speed, looked really close. The braking zone's just nowhere near heavy enough, and he's not able to get that move done. This is why I kind of prefer this older layout to the Spain circuit. I know they've gone more back to the original one with a shallower turn number 10 and a bit more of a softer corner, but this one, as you can see here, with one board with Justas, you had a heavy braking zone into turn 10, and I wonder whether we'll see drivers start to maybe think about making moves there or making them at other parts of the circuit, because it just doesn't look to be working into turn 1 at this moment in time. And Killer Blue, I wonder if anyone's telling, he'll obviously be able to see that Juan Rojo is derating down the pit straight once that red light starts flashing below 10%, but it just seems he's too busy focusing on Campbell at the moment, who each lap is getting a fantastic run out of the final chicane. But I think this could well be the chance for Killer Blue. Juan Rojo's going to have to go defensive very early. He's going to lose at least 1 place. I think it's very likely to be 2. There we go, Campbell gets the move done as well, and all of a sudden Juan Rojo is down to 6th.
Yeah, and that is the disadvantage of using your ERS so early on in this race. He may have good speed down through the corners, but he's just so slow in a straight line. We know how powerful ERS and DRS is on this game and the slipstream as well. So having that ERS still in your back pocket is so crucial in these races, and derating so early on in the race is going to be such a problem for him. It's Verstappen that will be next to have a go, and Total Peace, of course, still right in there as well for IFRA. He's not far behind, and we've still got Lewis and Snell clinging on nicely on the medium compound tyres on the back of this queue. And just to make matters worse for LFR and Juan Rojo, he is the first of those inside the top 10 to pick up a time penalty.
Yeah, and with how close things are at the moment, that is going to be quite costly for Hans with a time penalty as well. Down in 14th, looks like ERT are going to have a bit of a struggle race again with Khalifa having that incident earlier on. Now that Killer Blue's gone ahead of Juan Rojo, will he be able to go for the other LFR car? Cyclonator, you can see, is now 1.5 seconds behind Justas, so no danger of him getting him a DRS anytime soon in that black and gold, almost Haas Rich Energy like livery, but it's anything like a Rich Energy Haas performance at this moment in time. In 3rd and was in 6th place, because Juan Rojo first managed to come into the pit at the end of lap 7 to get rid of those soft tyres. He's got himself a penalty. He was struggling a bit with the tyres, and they are the white-walled hard tyres going on that car. He's going for a 1-stop.
Yeah, going for that one-stop strategy for the hard compound tyres. That could give him track position in the next few laps. The problem is, though, is I think we're going to see a lot of these soft runners extend to maybe lap 10 or 11 and then go for the mediums. So while he may get an initial benefit from this and maybe gain track position, we know already the medium compound tyres have been faster. Mashiro's got through all the rest of the hard runners and dropped them in the last few laps as well. So while the hards will be a good consistent tyre towards the end of the race, they won't have the speed over the mediums, which I think the majority of the rest of the people that started on the softs will go for.
Yeah, certainly. And pitting early. If there's a safety car because of an incident, drivers have kept it fairly clean so far, although I just realised what I've said live on stream, so you can guarantee we're going to get a safety car within the next 2 laps now. But yeah, that could always cause a slight problem. If you pit early on and then there's a safety car, you will find yourself losing a lot of time. While we were looking at the first pit stop of the race, there was a move for 4th position. Campbell got himself ahead of Killer Blue, so he's now right on the back of Cyclonator, and with that pace coming out the final corner, you never know, he might just be able to start making a move. Bit far back this time around, and I think he realises that, not using his ERS. I wonder if he did use a lot of ERS earlier on to get that move done. Boomkia coming into the pits then for IRT. He's going to come out quite a long way down the order. Should be out ahead of XL Larkin. I imagine he's going to go for a set of the hard tyres as well on that car. And yeah, there we go, white walled hard tyres, so he's going to come out quite a long way down the order in 16th. Plenty of free air to use those tyres, like we saw with Juan Rojo. Nothing much happening with the lead 2 cars. They're just having a good time at the moment, and you can see that each lap extending that gap to Cyclonado by about, you know, just a few hundredths of a second, about a tenth of a second, but they don't have to worry about the drivers behind them. Total P's now picks up a 3-second time penalty.
Yeah, Relentless is going really well at the moment for them. I was just checking the race direction to see what kind of times they were doing, and Nathan on that last lap, in the last 2 sectors of the lap, was still running faster than we're seeing from Juan Rojo on fresh tyres. So despite the fresh tyres for Juan Rojo, still not fast enough at the moment to really make an impact on Relentless this race so far. It's really going well for them. Cyclonado was derating again this time in the middle part of the lap, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see Campbell go for it. Never mind, Cyclonado is into the pit lane at the end of lap 9. This still feels a little bit too early for me for the medium compound tyres. Peace has followed him in as well. We'll see what tyres they decide to go for into the pit lane. It is the hard compound tyres for Cyclonado that he has gone on to, and I imagine Pease will probably do the same as he pops into the pit lane down at the very end. And again, it is the hard compound tyres, so we're actually seeing a lot more drivers go for the hards than maybe we were first expecting.
I can see why Cyclonado did it, because let's not forget, he put 2 laps on the soft tyres on his second run in qualifying and then didn't get a clean third run in, so he'll have started on older tyres than some of the others anyway. So maybe if it wasn't for that one extra lap could have just made a difference to his strategy. We're on board with Stel then. He is in 7th place at the moment as Kelvin joins, well, unfortunately a bit late for him. BAR slightly shot themselves in the foot then, neither driver turning up. A 10-second point penalty in a series where everyone scores points as long as you get to the finish could well leave them bottom of the championship, by the way things looking at the end of the evening. So we'll have to wait and see if we do find out what the reasons for that are for. I'm sure everyone would love to find that one out. We're looking at the battle then between IFRA Lewis and Snell at the moment for 6th and 7th place. Now that some of the drivers have pitted, they have of course dropped off that queue for the leaders with the DRS. So whatever they're gaining by having better tyres at this moment in time, they'll be losing by the fact they haven't got that drag reduction system, as we're now seeing the leaders coming to the pit. Both Relentless cars in. And there we go, Nathan going on that set of mediums.
Yeah, and Yustaz following him through as well. Yustaz into the pit lane at the same time. He's also gone for the medium compound tyres. I think that's smart, though, from Relentless to both come in at the same time just to make sure that they're still together and neither one of the drivers ends up with a disadvantage on their strategy. However, I think Yustaz was held a little bit in the pit lane by Verstappen also coming in, so that has separated them out. But here comes Verstappen out onto the track behind all of those hard runners. He's behind Cyclonado, Juan Rojo and Total P's as Juan Rojo picks up a 2nd penalty already. Verstappen's going to have pace advantage here, but all the hard runners in front of him are within DRS range of one another. This plays even more into Relentless's hands now, because Verstappen was, well, he was running in 5th place on the road just behind Killer Blue and Campbell, and you would imagine that Campbell and Killer Blue are going to come out right in the middle of this pack with some overtaking to do.
Yeah, they are, of course. You see, Boompia's nearly got onto the back of them as well. Verstappen, he's going to find this difficult to get these overtakes done. Peace has a bit of a slide there coming through turn 7 and 8. What we've seen already in the DRS train, it's very hard to get any moves done as Juan Rojo loses it coming through turn number 9. That is a broken front wing, and he's going to be heading into the pits. What was looking like a fantastic start to the race for LFR, just slowly, well, definitely for Juan Rojo, it's just falling apart at the moment. 6 seconds of penalties, and he's going to have to make another pit stop as we're seeing the remaining soft runners coming into the pits. Campbell and Killer Blue. Philip MD still staying out there on a set of soft tyres, trying something different after a bad start to the race. But this is, you imagine, it's still going to be Nathan and Shostaz in the net lead of the race, of course.
Yes, Campbell's coming out of the pit lane now, and actually I think he's jumped quite a few drivers here as he comes down the pit lane. Cyclonado isn't going to get him, so for Campbell that's worked out quite nicely. A lap fresher tyres than the Relentless guys, and he's just managed to get ahead of Cyclonado, although Cyclonado thinking about a move through and up towards turn 4, but you can see they're just understeering the dirty air for the Latam driver, and you can't get close enough to the back of Campbell to make a move stick. So Campbell in a net 3rd position at the moment. Killer Blue, though, horrible pit stop for Killer Blue. I don't know what happened there. Did he have a front wing change, or was he just massively held? I'm wondering whether, I was thinking we could see drivers hit the pit wall in the entry to the pit lane. It's so common to do here because of how bumpy that entrance to the pit lane is. I wonder whether Killer Blue has fallen foul of that, because that is way beyond where we expect him to be.
As I was flicking through the drivers to try and see where they were coming out of the pit lane, and I did see someone getting a front wing change, and It may well have been Killer Blue, you know. He might have had a front wing change. That's put him a long way down the net order at this moment in time. You can see it's 8 for the cars that have been into the pits. Only the top 7 yet to come in. Those at the bottom, Juan Rojo and Khalifa, still going around. Fair play to them, but it's going to be difficult for either of them to improve on 17th and 18th as they've got penalties as well. Philip MD now comes into the pits, but yeah, Killer Blue with that costly front wing change perhaps. He's quite a bit down the order. Obviously, Larkin had that issue earlier on. It's not been the greatest of races for XL. Verstappen sets the fastest lap of the race, as in the DRS of Cyclonado. Can't get the move done this time around. He did manage to get past Total P's a lap earlier on. I wonder if there's any way the QBR boys could work together here to just allow Verstappen to get ahead of Cyclonado, because judging he's on those medium tyres, you'd expect him to have better pace. On the other hand, does Campbell, would he be better off just trying to break that 1 second window? And then obviously Verstappen should find it a lot easier to get the move done.
Yeah, it's really going to be crucial for Campbell to break that 1 second window. If, as it stands right now, Verstappen's not going to have enough of a pace advantage to pass Cyclonado. And of course, the longer that he stays behind, the worse it gets. But Cyclonado, a big wobble there, coming out of turn 8 and down through turn 9. I wonder if Verstappen's close enough for a move at turn 10. Cyclonado does have DRS, but no slipstream from the back of Campbell. Verstappen thinks about a move, but he's not close enough into the braking zone for turn 10. But that one minute error from the Latam driver is going to put Verstappen all over the back of him down the pit straight. And like I said, yeah, Verstappen needs to make this move as quickly as he can, because the longer the race goes on, the smaller the gap in pace is going to be between the medium and the hard compound tyres. But the fact that Cyclonado has lost DRS here, I think that Verstappen may be able to get this move done, as Nathan's now starting to pass those that haven't pitted yet.
Yeah, Nathan, fastest lap of the race, moving his way up the order. Here comes Verstappen then on Cyclonado. Makes a bit of a late move there. I think the first one he could have got away with. The second one was definitely harsh. A bit of wheel banging between the two of them. Verstappen's off towards the gravel. Total Peace could well be the biggest winner between this if they don't stop fighting each other. Verstappen has got that move done, and I think is going to stay ahead. Total Peace is going to think about one down the inside into turn 4. That's a brave move. And I'm not sure. Part of me says Cyclonado didn't give him enough room. Part of me thinks that was never really on, unfortunately, for Total Peace. He spins around down to 14th place. I don't think LFR have made themselves too many friends on that lap.
No, that was a really bit of a weird one on board with Verstappen. I think the first move, like I say, for Cyclonado was okay, but I think Verstappen, still thought that there was a gap on the inside to make that move, and Cyclonado was just creeping over to the right after that first initial move, and that gap went, and Verstappen didn't quite realise it in time. They get away with it without too much of a problem, but yeah, that was right on the line, really, wasn't it, for Cyclonado? And I think I tend to agree with you for Pease. That was kind of a half-hearted move down the inside. I don't think it was ever going to work, and it wasn't really worth the risk. It's now dropped behind Boomcha and Killer Blue as well. That is more points lost for IFR, who really need the points at this point in the championship.
Yeah, they certainly do. So further up the field, what we're getting at the moment, Stell and Lewis have been battling quite hard indeed. Nathan's making more moves on those medium tyres. He was flying in the first stint of the race, and now that Just As got held up in the pits, Nathan's flying even more at the moment. He's up into 5th. Just As is 7th. He's got his way ahead of Steve, so we are starting to see these drivers work past those that started on the harder tyres, of course. Those on the mediums carrying on a bit longer. They've got a choice. They can either come in round about now and go onto the hard tyres, but then you've sort of ruined the point of starting on the mediums. I imagine more it'll be pit round about lap 21, lap 22, put on a set of softs. Yes, you'll have plenty of overtaking to do, but it is very possible to do so, and you've got yourself a chance of getting that extra point for the fastest lap of the race, of course.
Of course, yeah, and then beyond that, we've also mentioned a lot of times this evening about tyre temperatures. It's a lot easier to manage your tyre temperatures when there's less fuel in the car, so they're not going to have too much of a problem with the softs at the end of the race. We'll wait and see as Pease picks up his second penalty of the race now, and Philip follows him through with another penalty for himself as well. Running on board with Snell, is he going to go for the move down the pit straight on Lewis this time around? Yes, he is. Lewis doesn't put up a fight. I think he knows that Snell has the straight line speed, and the CPI man retakes the lead of the race then. And these two, while they're still battling just that little bit, they're not really defending against one another, which means that they're still pulling away from Mashiro behind. So it's actually working out quite well for them at the moment, as Nathan's now past Hannes and now has about 3 seconds of clear air. So Nathan now back into clear air once again and doing a really, really good job for Relentless this evening, just as in behind as well. And they are at the moment near enough, 4 seconds clear of the next driver that's already pitted.
Yeah, and it is the next drivers that have pitted are the 2 QBR drivers. Qualifying, as we said, not necessarily always their strong point. They always come good in the race. We saw this all last season from Clean Vigor Racing. In qualifying, XL, some of the other teams would look slightly better, and they just come through the field in the race, and they've done that again today. Campbell is in 9th place, that's the net 3rd. We've got Verstappen in a net 10th, but they're going to have to rely on maybe penalties for the relentless drivers to really have a chance at having a go with them. Even if Just As gets a 3-second time penalty at this moment in time, he would still be about a second ahead of QVR Campbell. So results at the front, maybe looking a bit sorted already in this race. But if there's one thing that Formula 1 games have taught all of us, is that you never want to count your chickens before they hatch. We've seen already drivers have spins early on, penalties. Having trouble getting through traffic could well make it difficult as well. And talking about having trouble getting through traffic, I mean, this is what Justas is in now, because Brazabak has got the DRS. He's going to get a move done past Hans here. I think Justas is going to try and follow him through there. Hans sort of leaves him enough room, but that really holds Justas up. And this is, obviously, it's good news for Nathan getting away. I would say it's good news for Campbell as well, but he's now finding himself stuck behind Siev. These drivers, they might be losing time defending this position, but they're well within their rights to.
Yeah, definitely within the rights to, like you say, and yeah, Justas went for the move. It wasn't really worth the risk, I don't think, down the inside of Hannes. It came from a bit too far back, and the problem is at this point they've got enough of a buffer that Justas especially doesn't need to rush this move. He doesn't need to make anything stupid and take a risk, because Campbell's not immediately on the back of him. He's still got yet another car to clear, and then beyond Campbell there's still another 2 seconds back to Verstappen. So Justas doesn't need to take the risk and go for a risky move on Hannes or Brazabak at this point in the race. Again, not close enough into turn 10, but Hannes struggling a little bit with pace as Killer Blue now picks up a time penalty down in 13th place. It's just going from bad to worse here tonight for XL, isn't it? Whilst Relentless and QVR are continuing on with another good run here this evening, continuing on from Bahrain for XL, nothing seems to be going their way.
Yeah, it is only a 10-race series, let's not forget. So as long as you get to the finish, you won't get points, and there might be an opportunity for one of the teams you're battling with to have a bad race. You can't really afford too many of them. This is going to be a straightforward move this time for Justas with the overspeed, a bit of ERS. Both of the drivers having DRS, but better tyres on the brakes. And there we go. Justas gets his way up into 6th place. Campbell getting ahead of Siev now. He's up into 8th. He's going to set his way after the Relentless driver and the ERT man, and Killer Blue, just after getting that penalty, gets himself up into 12th. Will still likely score a decent set of points, but not quite what they'd have expected. After, although Killer Blue was quite a long way down, I believe, earlier in qualifying. Not what they would have expected, of course. Back towards the front of the field, and Stell and Lewis, yeah, they're definitely battling with each other. But because they're keeping in DRS range and they're not over-defending, it is helping them. Just looking at the gap back to the leader, if they pitted now, they'd come out round about where Boompia is. Of course, we've got some of the hard drivers to pit as well. Neither of them have got any penalties. Could still get, maybe, like I said, podium might even be a bit out of reach, but a top 5 finish would be very handy for CPI, first, of course, race in this league, and IFRA, who are finding themselves on minus 10 points going into this race.
Yeah, it's been a strong race for both of them so far, and yeah, like you say, they're not battling too hard with one another. They're almost working together, even though they're not in the same team. They seem to have been able to tune into the same strategy, and they're working really well together as Nathan breezes past Mishiro when Justas breezes past Brazabak on the same straight at the same time, so they're continuing to work their way forwards. Yeah, top 5 is definitely on the cards. Now that Cyclonado as well has just got a time penalty, that plays even more into Stella and Lewis's hands. Killer Blue's slow pit stop means that Stella and Lewis aren't going to be far off Killer Blue and Boomia when they come into the pit lane. Pease has already spun in this race as well, so they're not going to be far off. They're really going to be well inside the top 10 by the time they've made their stops. So it's looking really good for both of them at this point in the race. And as I say that, Snell picks up his first penalty of the race.
Yeah, Snell, one of, 9 drivers at the moment to have a penalty. So half the field have got them. It's 6 seconds for total Pease. It's 9 seconds for Juan Rojo. Everyone else with a penalty has got 3 seconds. We're on board with QVR Verstappen then. He's got Juan Rojo's teammate just behind him in Cyclonado, and he's got Siev just ahead of him. DRS, though, should be able to make the move done down into turn 10, and there we go. Verstappen gets himself up into 9th place, doesn't want to be held back too much. Not too far off the back of his teammates, so these two might start working together, although Siev there almost making contact with the back of Verstappen. Cyclonado is going to have to just stay behind for a bit longer, and this is where those hard tyres, the disadvantage might start to come. He's going to have a tyre grip advantage over Siev, that is absolutely guaranteed, but with the IRT man having DRS and both of them being on the hard tyres, might not quite be the advantage he would have liked, and it doesn't look likely that he's going to get the move done on this lap.
No, definitely looks like that's going to be the case, unfortunately. And look at Steve there trying to think about a move back down the inside of Verstappen, who's derating down the pit straight. But of course not close enough, and they're just not in the same race at this point. Someone that has pitted is Hannes, by the way, for Elite Racing Team. He comes out onto the track behind Philip, but in a bit of clean air, so not too bad for him, and he's trying, I think, to undercut the likes of Brazaback and see that he was on the same strategy as a little bit earlier on. Possibly the likes of Mishiro as well, who of course hasn't made his pit stop, and maybe use these next couple of laps on a fresh set of medium tyres to undercut those drivers. So a couple of places to be gained possibly for Hannes after that pit stop, as Mishiro now picks up a time penalty. The problem here for Campbell now is he's still got Mishiro and Brazapak between himself and the Relentless drivers. The Relentless drivers, despite Eustace being held up a little bit, they have gotten a bit closer together now. It's now 1.5 seconds between Nathan and Eustace, but they are so comfortably clear ahead of Campbell, and the two QVR drivers have been separated. So yeah, really going well for Relentless at the moment, and QVR, third and fourth, still strong, but they just don't seem to have an answer.
Yeah, I'm a bit surprised by Hans coming in that early and putting on a set of the medium tyres, similar to how we saw, I suppose, we saw Juan Rojo come in early and put on a set of the hard tyres. We're now seeing Seb and Mishiro come into the pits, and there we go for Mishiro. It is the red walled soft tyres. He's going aggressive in this race, and for Seb it is as well, but he's coming the same lap as Mishiro. It's one thing you've got to pay attention to here in EML is when is your teammate coming into the pit lane? He's coming on the same lap, and what was looking like a bad race for him, all of a sudden, he's going to be a long way down the order on a set of medium tyres though. He's going to be all the way down in 16th place, maybe even 17th.
That's an absolute disaster for Seb and Mishiro as well. His pit stop was very, very long. I don't know what on earth he was doing there. I don't know if he was sat in the pit lane for some reason, but his pit stop much longer than it needed to be, because he's now come out 5 seconds behind Hannes when he was ahead of him. So that's an absolute disaster for Mishiro in the pit lane as well. His night has just not gone his way at all. Seb just come out onto the track in 16th position. But the only real chance now he has of overtaking someone is Larkin a bit further up the road, and that's about it. So a real disaster for both of those drivers in the pit lane. It's not worked out for them at all. Would be surprised if we see Snell and Lewis in soon, but they're staying out for another lap. I do think 13 laps for Mishiro on a set of soft compound tyres, it's doable, but he is really going to struggle towards the end of the race, as Brazaback is the next person into the pit lane. Yeah,
Brazaback into the pits on that to get rid of that set of the hard tyres. Imagine he'll now be going on to a set of the soft tyres as we have a look. Yeah, we go. Red Bull tyres for the CPI driver, and I think his teammate won't be too far from coming in as well. Yeah, Mishiro, it's a long way. I think lap 21 is about the earliest I expected anyone to really go for it, and he's gone for it one earlier than that. So not massively crazy, but if he starts sliding those tyres a bit and starts getting involved in battles, he's got himself a bit of free air at the moment to use them, but in the last lap or two of this race, he might start struggling the pace, and maybe any medium runners he's caught up to might just be able to fight back. But it is still Snell and Lewis leading out on track. You can now see the two Relentless drivers closing in on them. Nathan 1.3 seconds ahead of Eustace. Verstappen just makes an appearance, well, Campbell just makes an appearance in the background, I should say, 4.6 seconds behind at this moment in time. Verstappen 6, Cyclonado 7, Killer Blue 8, Boombier in 9th place, and Total P's just in 10th place at the moment, but all over the back of the IRT man, so we could well see some moves done here. And of course, if these drivers start battling, that's going to be good news for those that were on the alternate strategy, like Philip, like Hans, and like the two cars on the soft tyres. As Steve gets a penalty, and we've seen Lewis come into the pits.
Yeah, that's perfect for Lewis. Snell stayed out, so that's perfect for Lewis. He now has the opportunity to undercut and gap Snell in this part of the race. So they've been together this whole race now, and this is an opportunity for him to get away from them. And where he's going to come out of the pit lane here is actually going to play beautifully for him. He comes out into the pit lane behind Pease. Pease gets the move done on Bumpier easily down the pit straight, but Lewis is out in a lot of clean air in 10th place with no penalties. Realistically, you've got to say, he's at least got easily a chance of getting up to Killer Blue and then getting within maybe Cyclonado's penalty range. So a 5th place finish here for Lewis is definitely on the cards.
Yeah, certainly. He's had a fantastic performance there. He needs to get past these two hard runners as quickly as possible. And while Boom's remaining in the DRS of Total P's, that might be a bit difficult, but we've seen it early on. You just need to get imaginative, maybe. Think about where you can get the move done, not relying on DRS. Maybe into turn 5, maybe using the pace further down turn 3 into turn 4 on that set of tyres to just catch the driver out at a part of the circuit that is not a traditional overtaking point. Fair play to Cyclonado on those hard tyres. He has stayed within contact with Verstappen. Was thinking he might drop back earlier on. He has got that penalty, and well, it turns out he's got an almost identical ERS level to Verstappen. If anything, he's got a couple of % more, so he's not doing too bad at the moment, and I think him staying in range could definitely maybe help him defend later on in this race. As Snell comes into the pits, we've seen all the drivers make their pit stop as Verstappen's clipping here. Cyclonator isn't. He gets himself up into 4th place on track. Maybe now we're just starting to see the benefit of that hard tyre strategy.
Yeah, it's starting to flip back towards the hard runners now, it seems to be, doesn't it? I wonder whether we saw Cyclonato and his teammate Juan Rojo really struggle on the soft compound tyres compared to the people around them. I wonder whether they went for the hards because they knew that they could manage the tyre temperatures, and maybe they didn't think they could manage the temperatures on the mediums. So that's worked out nicely for them, maybe not tricked into doing the same strategy. And look at that, it's already starting to gap Verstappen just a little bit in this middle sector as well. So Verstappen struggling a little bit at this point in the race, doesn't have the pace of his QVR teammate Campbell, and Cyclonato, now that he's passed him, has got easily 0.6 of a second gap on him, so he's not under pressure from Verstappen down this straight. So if Lewis can get past some of these drivers quickly, he's got past Bumpier, and Snell's come out of the pit lane right behind Lewis, so in fact that undercut from Lewis wasn't that strong in the end. He's only just ahead of the CPI driver. If Lewis can get ahead of his teammate Pease and close in on the back of Killer Blue, could he possibly have a shot at closing in on Verstappen as well?
Yeah, if I was Lewis, I'd be on the blower to Total Peace at this moment in time and going, look, you've got a penalty, I'm on a different strategy to you, just let me go. At this moment in time, don't defend down the straight, let me go and let me try and get past some of these cars up ahead, because I won't be too far before I'm ahead of Killer Blue on penalties, and maybe even ahead of Cyclonato as well. And there we go, Total Peace isn't defending at this moment in time. I think that is a very sensible thing to do. Lewis gets ahead of his teammate, he's up into 7th, Pease is down into 8th. Maybe as well, Pease might just be able to hold Snell back for a slight bit longer, who does take that wider line through turn 3 to maybe, just maybe, get the better exit, but loses it ever so slightly in the dirty air, as there has been a spinner further down the field, and that is Juan Rojo coming back into the pits of that set of mediums. Hopefully, we don't see him retire from the race, because if he does put a set of soft tyres, you never know, could get that bonus point for the fastest lap, which currently belongs to Brazelback.
Yeah, at the moment, belongs to Brazelback, was just on board with his teammate Snell. Snell thought about a dive bomb move down the inside of Pease at turn 5, and it was just a little bit too late in the day to think about that move. So Pease at the moment doing a solid job of holding up Snell for his teammate Lewis. Only 2.4 seconds behind Killer Blue, so he's already within penalty range of Killer Blue. He's just got to get up to and then past him to get close enough to Cyclonato. But I've got to say, we've seen some faster zaps from Brazelback, but the likes of Lewis and Snell, I don't think they've had maybe the pace advantage we were expecting. We've got a yellow flag in sector 3. That's Hannes on his fresh medium tyres that's gone for a spin through turn 12. He's got going again with Mashiro right behind him. But I've got to say, the soft compound tyres don't seem to have had that massive pace advantage that maybe we were expecting.
I think they know they've got to be gentle with them, and they can't afford to just go all guns blazing, because that'll work for about 5 or 6 laps, and then all of a sudden they're going to be right back in the same situation that we saw the drivers like the LFR drivers in earlier on, where they're just struggling ever so slightly on those tyres. Verstappen is staying within DRS range of Cyclonato. Killer Blue's dropping back ever so slightly, and yeah, Lewis 1.5 seconds ahead. We are behind Killer Blue at this moment in time, and dragging Pease and Stell along with him, and Boompier's the one who's sort of been left off here, so this might help Pease with that time penalty. He has got 6 seconds at this moment in time, so he's going to need to gain about 6-7 tenths of a second a lap to beat Boopier on penalties. But even despite that incident earlier, should well get himself a top 10 finish. Both IFRA drivers recovering from what was a bit of a disastrous start to the season for them, where Pease was the only driver and retired from the Bahrain Grand Prix. Back towards the front of the field though, with 7 laps to go as we slot onto lap 27. It is still Nathan ahead of Just As. A very controlled drive so far from them. Campbell sort of on his own in 3rd place at this moment in time, just lapping Khalifa, and that might play a bit of a part in here. Lapped cars giving others DRS could just cause make it a bit harder for drivers to get the overtakes done.
Yeah, definitely could be the case, like you say, that could be a problem for them. And poor Campbell must be so bored at this point in the race, mustn't he? His only company on track is Khalifa running down at the back of the field. He can't see the relentless drivers in front, and he's too far ahead of Cyclonato and Verstappen to be under any sort of pressure. So still a good drive from him, but from where he was on the grid, 9th on the grid, remember, from Campbell, made up 3 places at the start and has made up 3 places since then as well. So it's been a great recovery from what wasn't a great qualifying from himself, but overall, his pace compared to the relentless drivers just hasn't been as strong in this race. Cyclonato is still doing a good job on those hard compound tyres, and he's getting closer now to him dropping Verstappen from his DRS range. It's hovering around 8 tenths of a second now. He's running low on ERS as Cyclonato, and Verstappen does have a little bit more in his back pocket, but pure pace-wise, still with 7 laps to go, Cyclonado does seem to be quite a bit faster than Verstappen at this point in the race. Verstappen just seems to be clinging on.
Yeah, I don't think we've got to worry about any of these medium tyre runners getting punctures towards the end of the race. Larkin managed 24 laps on his after pitting early on in the race. He's now coming for a set of soft tyres. He's going to finish 16th place pretty much, barring any incidents at this moment in time. Might get himself a fastest lap point for LFR and XL. 4th in the championship LFR, XL 3rd in the moment. They're going to have one driver scoring good points, but they've not been able to have both, and that's going to be good news obviously for QBR and Relentless, with both of their drivers towards the front of the field in the top 5, as Lewis finally gets that move done on Killer Brew. He is up then into 6th place, as it's not great news for IFRA completely on that lap though, because Total B's has lost his front wing. He's had an off at turn 1. Not sure if that's another car, and that has caused a virtual safety car.
Yeah, that is a virtual safety car. I don't think there was any contact with Snell. That was who he was racing with. I think he just plain and simply spun it on the curb and broke his front wing, unfortunately. That is a disaster for him, which was a good recovery race after that early spin. This is now going to put him well down the order now, down into about 15th place once he's made that pit stop, maybe 16th. He'll be happy that there is a virtual safety car, because that would just limit some of the damage at this point in the race. But either way, that is a real shame for Total P's in this one, that he has lost his front wing just as his teammate was making his way forwards. Virtual safety car, I think the likes of Nathan Yusaz and Campbell will be breathing a sigh of relief that that's not a full safety car, because that could have really put the cat amongst the pigeons.
Yeah, I think they're about to come in for a set of soft tyres. There we go, virtual safety car has ended. I don't believe anyone got themselves a time penalty for that one. Lewis seemed to lose quite a bit of time in that, and Mashiro and Hans were pretty much side by side as that VSC ended, and Hans has got the move back done on those medium tyres. He's now up into 13th place. That is going to become 12th place when Pease makes his way into the pits at the end of this lap. And there we go, Total Pease is coming into the pits. He might be able to put the softs on and get himself the fastest lap point. That is what Khalifa is thinking about doing as well. Back to the battle for 4th place, so Verstappen 8/7 of a second behind. He's going to have to really rely on Cyclonado making a slight mistake so he can get closer, and then obviously that lack of ERS that the Brazilian driver has got should really help Verstappen get the move done. He's going to get it on penalties anyway. 5 laps to go, 5 seconds to Lewis. It's unlikely. If Cyclonado and Verstappen do start battling, you never know, Lewis could get pretty close to them at the end.
Yeah, it could get very close, but I wonder whether that virtual safety car has kind of taken the wind out of the sails a little bit out of Lewis. He's lost about a lap where he could have gained time, and of course that's just going to help those in front of him manage their temperatures a little bit as well. So I wonder whether that virtual safety car has played against Lewis a little bit in this race. Killer Blues hanging on to the back of Lewis quite nicely at this point in the race as well. So I think the best of those soft compound tyres has gone, unfortunately, for Lewis, but still a 6th place finish on that alternate strategy is a really good result. Verstappen still just continuing to struggle to hold on to the back of Cyclonado. He's just within range of Cyclonado coming down the pit straight, but if he does drop out of range, Lewis could catch him very, very quickly. So he's got to make sure he's still within that DRS range, and that slow virtual safety car restart from Campbell as well has put Cyclonado just a little bit closer. So one minute error from Campbell, and Cyclonado could get past both of the QVR drivers in this race.
Yeah, definitely. Minute errors could play a big part as well, as we're seeing a move further down the field. The CPI of Brazabak trying to battle with Bumpia at this moment in time. Bumpia is very close to beating Stell on penalties. You can see them on the left-hand side of the screen at the moment. All 3 seconds apart from Pease and Khalifa on 9, and Juan Rojo, who has struggled ever so slightly with the track limits. He is on 12 seconds at this moment in time. Seen a few moves on that mat lap. Hans getting back ahead of Mashiro. Brazabak getting ahead of Philip MD. Larkin sets the fastest lap of the race. They're all going for these bonus points, and it's great to see that we have got all 18 cars still in, despite the difficulties quite a few different cars have had. No one has actually quit this race in the pits. We haven't had any retirements out on track yet, but as the tyres get a bit older, might only be 3 laps to go. Well, that is always still a possibility. Nathan rounds to final corner for the 30th time. 3 laps to go. Still Nathan and just as your 1-2. Verstappen still close to the back of LFR Cyclonado, and I think you're right, Lewis. That VSC period, maybe pushing a bit hard, maybe getting stuck in dirty air earlier on, means those soft tyres probably had their best life. 6th, though, still a very respectable result indeed.
Yeah, still a great result, and like you said earlier on, it's good for IFR to now just get some points on the board for them and actually kick their season off now. So good stuff from Lewis there as Brazabak and Bumpia still battling further down. This time around though, Brazabak easily able to get the move done into turn 1. Khalifa as well, setting the fastest lap of the race. He's nearly 2 laps down at this point in the race, but he has set another fastest lap, and that means that that's taken the point off of XL for the time being in this race. The top two, that Nathan and Yastaz at the front of the field, haven't really been close to one another this whole race. Nathan's been out of DRS range of all the drivers behind, and Yastaz has just been following at about 1.5 seconds. We spent the whole kind of first 3 laps of this race talking about DRS trains and the trouble they may have, but in the end, this field spread's actually been quite big.
Yeah, certainly. We saw it happen earlier on, obviously. These 2 cars just escaped, and it's a good job they don't have real sponsors on this game. Otherwise, I think they'd have got rather angry with the lack of airtime that they've had, just being that far ahead at the front of the field. And this is very interesting. Killer Blue is actually making to get his way back ahead, Lewis. So that's Killer Blue now into 6th place. Will drop into 7th after penalties, as Juan Rojo shows that pace he showed in qualifying to set the fastest lap of the race with just 2 laps remaining. Here comes Verstappen, though, on the back of Cyclonato. Closest he's been for a while. He's going to get that move done. He was going to get it on penalties anyway. He now takes that 4th place out on track as Peace picks himself up another time penalty. So it is going to be QBR free for you'd imagine. Imagine it's going to be a relentless one too as well, as Cyclonado is going to get another top 5 finish for LFR team. Steady battles happening further down the field. Boompia is trying to stay in contact with Brazelback. It's going to be very difficult though. 22-lap hard tyres versus 9-lap-old soft tyres. Should still get it on penalties though.
Yeah, should still get it on penalties, and penalties in the end in this race have made quite a bit of a difference for a lot of these drivers. The top 4 haven't picked up a penalty as P's now with the fastest lap of the race, so they're all still fighting for that fastest lap further down, and now it's held by P's for IFRA. But yeah, like we said, penalties playing a major part for some of these drivers a bit further down. Bumpia's going to gain at least 1 place on Brazelback, maybe another if Snell picks up another penalty, and he's not at risk from the drivers behind either. And Larkin as well, what's been a horrible race for Larkin, he will pass P's on penalties as well, so that's at least some points. And we've discussed it many times, any point in EML counts because of how close this championship is, as the relentless drivers take us onto the final lap of the race.
Yeah, Nathan there onto the final lap of the race, just as almost within DRS range. I wonder if there's going to be a bit of a photo finish between them. And there you go, you said Bumbia could gain a place if there's another penalty. Schnell picks up another 3-second time penalty, so Bumbia could well get himself up to 8th place here. Not a driver we've talked about a lot tonight, but he's just sort of quietly done his business on that set of the hard tyres after qualified in 10th place, and he looks like he's going to finish in 8th place. Very rare you see a driver who starts 10th at the Spanish Grand Prix actually manage to gain positions. This is why it is so important to keep it clean as we head back towards the lead, as Nathan and just as you can see they're just slowing, well, Nathan just slowing it down here. It's been an absolutely brilliant race from him, pretty much decided at the start of the race. He had a fantastic getaway off the line, got ahead of his teammate who out-qualified him, of course, but since then, the 2 drivers have looked absolutely fantastic for Relentless. 3-4 last time out with just as leading Nathan, got them in the lead of the championship. A 1-2 is going to extend that margin quite significantly. Send a bit of a warning shot to the other teams that Relentless aren't here to mess about. It's a 1-2 for them. Nathan takes towards the line very slowly, gets that victory, just as is in 2nd place. Campbell gets his first podium of the season in his first appearance in 3rd position. As there was a bit of a timing glitch on my end there. That's how Campbell dropped down the order, but he is in 3rd place. Verstappen 4th, Cyclonado 5th. Lewis beats Killer Blue on penalties to take 6th. Stell will drop down the order behind Bubia, who takes 8th. Brazelback takes 9th position in the end. Stell takes 10th. And Philip, Hans Mashiro, Sib will be 14th. Pease will drop behind Larkin. And Juan Rojo and Khalifa are a lap down. But Nathan and just as Java said in the chat, so proud of the boys. They did not put a foot wrong. 1-2 in qualifying, 1-2 in the race.
Yeah, we're not really under any pressure at all in that race to many other drivers. What a great race that was. And like you said, Nathan won that race at the start, didn't he? Was able to pull that gap on his teammate in the DRS range, and then Yusas was able to do the same to the 2 Latam drivers. And from that point onwards, no one really had an answer. And that is, like you say, a major warning shot to the other teams for the rest of this season. And an easy 1-2 finish for them, taking the 1-2 and extending their championship lead. So, yeah, what a brilliant start to the championship for them.
Yeah, certainly. Nathan then picking up the trophy, just as that consistency as well. 3rd in the first race, 2nd in the last one. I wonder if next time around he might be able to take that first victory of the season at Azerbaijan, a race which I have a funny feeling might see a few more retirements than we had tonight. But Nathan takes the victory then, just as in 2nd. Campbell, great job from him starting in 9th. A fantastic start to the race, some clinical overtaking. Gets himself up into 3rd position. Verstappen in 4th. Cyclonado in 5th place in the end. Lewis, 6th on the alternate strategy. Killer Blue takes 7th. Boompier is in 8th. Razorback and Snell mean both CPI drivers get inside the top 10. A good debut for them in EML League 1 this season. Philip MD is 11th. Hans secures ERT's first points in 12th. Fashiro 13th. Sieb got held in the pits. Who knows what could have been if it wasn't for that. He finishes in 14th. Larkin takes 15th. Pease gets 4 points for 16th, plus the extra point for the fastest lap. And Juan Volo and Khalifa both finished, both of them a lap down. That first lap, to be perfectly honest, thinking about it, is now probably where we saw the majority of the chaos in that race. There were a few spins for the drivers. All in all, was a fairly clean race, though.
Yeah, very well behaved. Those drivers were in that race, weren't they? We didn't see, obviously, a lot of battles on track, but I think that's just inducive of the track we're racing at the Circuit de Barcelona Catalonia. It's not amazing for racing, but yeah, everybody very well behaved in this race in the end, and really, really good performances throughout the field. It's great to see as well, every single driver, even those that were a lap down, completing the race and getting points on the board. That is great to see as well. Great sportsmanship as well to complete those races. So brilliant stuff from each team tonight. So can't wait to see what's going to happen for the rest of this season. But like we mentioned, that is a major warning shot from Relentless for the rest of the teams.
Yeah, definitely. They'll all be going back to the drawing board and maybe seeing what they can do to stop Relentless, who have only used 2 drivers so far. You have got to swap your drivers quite a bit here. I believe you have got to use a minimum of 5 drivers in EML. So be interested to see what other drivers Relentless bring in, perhaps, as we can take a quick look at the calendar for the rest of the season. And it's 4 weeks' time. Azerbaijan, Baku. That could be a race that might not win you the championship, but it could definitely be losing it. A few teams could well pick up a few 0-pointers there. Very easy to get it wrong around Azerbaijan, the only street circuit that we have got on the EML calendar this season.
Yeah, that is going to be a really real interesting race, isn't it? A real race of attrition as well, and rain seems to be common there as well. So if we do get any sort of rain interference in that race, that could cause even more carnage. I think Baku is one of those tracks where the term safety cars breed safety cars is definitely true to form, isn't it? It always happens, real life or in league racing as well. So can't wait to see how Baku's going to turn out. And I would expect we're probably going to see very different lineups next time out.
Yeah, certainly. I think you might see a few street circuit specialists coming out then. Before then, there is, of course, the EML Premier action tonight. James Head and Mike Edwards taking you through the top 10 fastest teams here at the Esports Masters League. That will be starting at 8:30 will be the race start. Stream will be starting not too long after this one ends. You'll be able to check out what happened in League 2 as well with Graham and Storm. That started at the same time as us. You'll be able to check that and all the League Racing TV action on the channel. Let's not forget it is TTML action this week as well from Belgium. F1, F2 with myself and F3 on the Thursday, and F4 and F5 on the Friday. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Thanks for Aidan for joining me in the commentary box. Thanks to all the teams and drivers for what was an absolutely fantastic race. We'll see you again in 4 weeks' time for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Can anyone stop Relentless extending their lead in the championship? Will it be QVR? Will it be Latam? Will it be XL? Or will another team come to the fore around the streets of Baku? We'll see you in 4 weeks. Take care of yourselves, everyone, and goodbye.